Hello, and welcome to the Possibility Partners Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, your Chief Possibility Officer, and I love sharing the Andelicious advice for entrepreneurial adventures. And these are conversations with seasoned entrepreneurs, all sharing their best tips, tools, and advice to help you keep your business thriving and healthy and successful. And I'm so grateful to all you live viewers. Yoo-hoo! So thrilled that you're here. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in live. And for my replay viewers, you know, mwah, 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 I love you to pieces. I'm so honored that you took time out of your life as well to join us and bring your delicious energy to the show. And I always want to stay connected. I'm on every social media platform. So you come on over, tell me what's going on with your entrepreneurial adventure, what's happening. But those who know me well know that I'm hanging out at the bar more often, and that is Twitter. Yes, Twitter is the social media bar. And you can find me at Ande Lyons. And to tune into prior Possibility Partner shows or to stay tuned in and turned on to future Possibility Partner shows, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Andelicious Advice. And on my website, there is the most amazing and free 5-minute guided meditation waiting for you. And this is a wonderful meditation to do first thing in the morning, grounds you into your body, grounds you into your intention for the day, because it's always important to start your day focused on your outcomes that you want to create. And this meditation will quickly take you there, help you embrace who your ideal client is, where you want to go to grow and glow with your business. So go over to andelyons.com and download that free meditation. All right. You see him here right beside me, our guest today. So charming, delightful, prolific in writing, a huge advocate. Let me just tell you a little bit about this delicious man and give you a taste of his entrepreneurial adventures. He's launched 3 multi-million-dollar companies and is the author of 3 phenomenal must-read. Seriously, every entrepreneur needs to read these books. Profit First, my personal fave. The Pumpkin Plan, love, love, love. And the Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, which is a tell it like it is guide to cleaning up in business, even if you're at the end of your role. Don't you just love that tagline? Mike is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and the former business makeover specialist on MSNBC. And now today, along with a phenomenal podcast, he gets to travel around the world, sharing his deliciousness everywhere. And we have him today. So please join me in welcoming this oh so divinely delicious Mike MICHALOWICZ. Hello, darling man.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me on, Ande.
I am so grateful that you joined us because I have been a fan for years. You were up here at Boston at an event that we had right when you had TPE come out, and you were just so amazing. And I was so grateful for all that you shared. And it's really true how you help entrepreneurs everywhere. But before we dive into, getting really financially fit, I'm showing my muscles here, everybody. I want you to talk just a little bit about what called you to be an entrepreneur, because in TPE, you talk about, and this is the Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, everybody, you talk about nature versus nurture.
Yeah. So I believe that there's this constant argument over, can you be nurtured into being an entrepreneur or are you born into it? And from my perspective, it's pretty clear we're born into it. I think things can be developed, but you have to have this hardwired risk aversion, the ability and desire just to take on challenges and to get energy from it. Because at the end of the day, my entrepreneurial journey and the now hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people I spoke with, it's a hard freaking journey. Like, entrepreneurship is hard. And if you need the high points to keep you motivated, entrepreneurship's not for you. But if it's wired into you that you get the thrill out of the pursuit, then I think entrepreneurship is who you are and you'll be successful at it.
That's great, Mike, because, I often want to put out a meme that says, folks, please stop glorifying entrepreneurship or the glorification of entrepreneurship. You're absolutely right. It is hard. There's so much uncertainty that goes on with it. And, people just don't understand. You have to get very comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah. It's a dirty business, right? So here, think about what it takes. You have to start a business, attract people to your business that didn't exist before. Someone's got to be the first customer. You have to deliver products or services. You have to work ridiculous hours, sacrifice family, friends, personal time, and there's no guarantee it's going to work. Like, if that was the makeup of what a job offer was, who would accept that job? So it is a special character.
Right. When are you going to get paid? Don't know.
No, you're not going to get paid. You know what? Not only that, we're wanting to work through the Christmas holidays too. Is that okay? Because we're not going to pay you. Like, no. But yes, that's what we do.
It is what we do. Thank you for sharing that. Because I do think, though, after 2008, our economy changed. And so people needed to adjust. A lot of people hung out a shingle, Mike. So what happened, for those folks who said, well, geez, I didn't know I could be an entrepreneur, but I got to make some money. And they found something that they were good at, or maybe they were good at freelancing. Do you think there was some nurture that happened there for the entrepreneurial adventure?
Yeah, I think some nurture happens, but I think entrepreneurship is something that we envision starting a particular day. We get out of college, or we wake up one morning and say, I want to start a business, or it's thrust upon us. And I think what happened in 2008 was many people were thrust into entrepreneurship because there was no job opportunities. And not everyone, but a portion of people said, this is a gift. This is actually the push I needed to get flying on my own. And now I love it. My own story wasn't in 2008. This is back in 96. But I was thrust into entrepreneurship too. I never thought I'd be doing this. I never desired it.
What were you doing?
Drinking a lot at a real bar, not the Twitter bar. And I had worked for a small computer company and was lamenting working there. I hated that job. And when I went out for drinks, and with enough, liquor in me, I'm like, I'm starting my own business. And I started my own business hungover the next morning. And was terrified that I did this. And I don't encourage anyone watching to drink your way into starting a business, but that's how I did it. And now I'm so grateful that I've done it. But I needed that push over the edge.
Hey, everybody who's watching live, let's give Mike some props. This is his first time on Blab, so let's give him. Do you see those
my God,
his
face is coming out of my shoulder.
That is the audience saying, we love you. You're amazing.
I can make it come out of my hand. Look at that. Look at that. I'm throwing a magic. It's wild.
Exactly. Thank you, everyone. Well, and you brought up a good point, and this is what I love so much about your story, is that you really embrace the fact that this is not an easy journey. And even when you think you've made it, you can have a downturn, as you did. I mean, you launched successfully 2 businesses. You exited. You were like, I'm the man. I'm Mr. Success formula right here. Then what happened?
Yeah. So, right. I sold my first company to private equity, my second company to a Fortune 500. And the only thing bigger than my bank account after I sold my second company was my ego. I thought, and I'm ashamed of this now, but I thought I was God's gift to entrepreneurship. I know everything. Look at how successful I am. I had the proof. So I decided to become an angel investor. Where I started up 10 companies with my own money. I was investing in different concepts and ideas from different entrepreneurs. I now lovingly call myself the angel of death. I sucked so badly at this. It was so outside of my capabilities, but my ego, my fat head said, well, clearly I'm so smart and successful. I'll just tell other people to do what I tell them to do, and they'll be successful because I'm involved. I lost all my money because of my ego during that phase. It wasn't just that. I bought the trophies, cars, house, big house, club membership, renting houses on Hawaii and taking vacations, like just spending, because I thought now I had the formula and I could just keep generating. Well, I couldn't. And what happened, and I write about this in Profit First, that's the book you referred to. I came home, I'll never forget this day. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2008. And I came home to tell my family that day that I had lost everything. Up to that point, I had not been telling them. I had been lying to them by omission, just everything's fine, everything's good, thinking I could buy my way out of this careening disaster I created. And I came home that day because I had to file taxes and didn't have enough money to pay taxes. We were going to lose our house, our cars, all that stuff immediately. So I had to tell them. And I came home, I still get emotional about it. I was sobbing. I was so ashamed. And I sat around our table with my children, my 3 children, my wife, and I told them what happened. And as I was telling them, my daughter, 9 years old at the time, she ran out of the room. And I thought, Andy, she was running away. I was convinced of it. And I thought, that's the solution. I'm such a failure. All I need to do is just run away. Just run away. But she wasn't running away. She was running to her room to get her piggy bank. And she came back to the dining room table right to me and said, Daddy, I'm going to help us get through this. And that chokes me up every time. That's the most important day of my life.
Absolutely.
It was humbling and embarrassing. I was ashamed of myself and proud of my daughter. But it also planted the seed for finding a way to not only recover for myself, but I came to realize many entrepreneurs struggle financially. We put on this air of success, but we are dying behind the scenes. And that day, as much as I never want to revisit that experience again, was the turning moment for me to find a new way to be sustainably profitable for my business and for all businesses.
I love it. And our kids are the greatest teachers, right, Mike?
Oh, my God. The funny thing is, so I go to my daughter. She's now entering college. And I went to my daughter just recently, and I said that day, like, there's one final thought I'll have in my head. It was that moment when she did that. My final breath will be that thought. And I said, that was such a remarkable moment. I'm so proud of you. And she goes, what moment? Like, she doesn't remember doing that. And at first, like, this is horrible. The most important day of my life, and she has no recollection. And then I realized that's just who she is. She would give all of herself to anyone of the family or her friends or a stranger. That's just hardwired into her. And that became another lesson for me, that the greatest moments are the moments that happen naturally. The greatest moments are often the ones you and I forget because it's who we are. It's our character that matters, not that fleeting moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, we had a similar situation. We were losing everything. And we were sitting up in bed in 2 in the night, going, yeah. And our same age, I think it sounds like your daughter was born in 98. Our son was born in 98. Yep. He came walking in. He'd never walked into sleep ever. He came walking in at 2 a.m, got into bed with both of us, put one hand on my cheek and the other on my husband's, and said, "It's so great to have parents." And we were like,
yeah, it melts you, right?
So, okay, we got our priorities straight. This is just money. All right, good. We'll get through this. So thank you for sharing your story. Our kids can really be sacred contracts in our lives as far as helping us glop onto what's really important. And she came in and she's, showing her willingness. It shifted your brain and said, okay, I'm not the only one who has struggled and made these mistakes. How can I make people stay profitable? And so let's dive into that, because many of those folks who are watching are looking at their checking account, or they're looking at the GAAP tax preparations that their bookkeeper or accountants have given them to manage their business. And you and I both know, huge mistake. So let's talk about that a little.
So many of us rely on what I call bank balance accounting. Now, traditional accounting, as Andy, I'm sure you're well aware, and everyone watching, we're told by our accountant and bookkeeper, and rightfully so, we should read our income statement, our balance sheet, our cash flow statement. We should tie these documents in together, do metric analysis, all this fancy stuff, get KPIs, all these key performance indicators, all these key things to identify the health and the financial fitness of our business. The problem is, most of us, I surely, don't know how to read all those documents, not effectively. I can get through an income statement, but a balance sheet and a cash flow statement, I don't even really know how to read those. And to tie them into each other, forget it. So I have it right here, I resort to this, my phone. I go onto my bank, I pull up my bank, and I'll type in, log in and see what my balance is. And that's what I call bank balance accounting. I look to see what my balance is on my bank account. And then based upon how many deposits are in there, how much cash is in there, I'll trust my gut. I'll make purchases if I have a lot of money. And if there's no money, I panic and I got to sell anything to anybody or do collections calls. So many of us resort to bank balance accounting. It is the biggest challenge we face because the numbers in a traditional setup where we have one bank account, we really don't know what purpose that money serves. This is all piled in one spot. So we just assume it can be used for the next thing we need. Pay salary, pay myself, pay rent. But if we actually pre-allocate money to different purposes, and that's what I write about in Profit First, if we allocate money to different envelopes, if you will, first in your bank accounts, now when you log in, you can see on your bank accounts, oh, I have this much money available for expenses, this much money available in reserve to pay myself, this much money for the company's profit, and so forth.
Right. And this key in the book, Profit First, everybody, you've got to download it now, seriously, and read it. Mike, throughout the book, gives you the percentages that you need that ideally should be in there for taxes, in there for profit, and hello, the most important thing, because nobody else would do your business for free, your salary, right, Mike? Talk about that.
So, Andy, I do public speaking. Actually, I'm flying out tonight to go to Colorado for a public speaking engagement about this topic. And I will go to the audience. The last audience I spoke to, literally over 1,000 people, I asked the audience just randomly, I said, who has employees? And a good portion had employees in this audience. And then I people raise their hand. I just pick someone out. I say, tell me your name, ma'am. And they'll say, my name's Andy. And I'll say, what's the name of your best employee? Oh, Bruce is. And I'll ask Susan, and it's Mark. And it's interesting because I'll point to each person. I'll say, I think you're lying. Actually, I know you're lying to me, because the best employee is not the other person. It's the person that took the risk to start the business. Again, in your company, no one works as hard as you, is as dedicated as you, and does it for as little pay or no pay like you do. We could never imagine treating our true best employee. We could never imagine looking at her and saying, I need you to work double the hours and I'm not going to pay you. No, we would never do that. So why do we do it to ourselves? Well, the consequence is pretty dire. Yeah. If we don't pay ourselves, it's only a matter of time before we start to resent our business. It may be months or years, but at a certain point, that mojo runs out saying, I had this dream, but now this dream's become a nightmare. That's why you must pay yourself. And so what you do in this system of Profit First is you allocate a percentage of your income to your pay as the owner first. Once that money is allocated, the remainder, and there's a few other things, you allocate money toward profit, you have to pay your taxes, you allocate money toward there. The remainder is taxes. And I'll do a slide presentation real quick.
Thank you.
Perfect. Here's my new slide. The old formula says sales minus expenses equals profit. And I suspect everyone watching in right now is familiar with this formula. You have sales, you then subtract the cost you have, and what's left over is profit. The problem with this, Andy, is this is totally absurd, because while this logically makes sense, it works for Spock, for most humans, we aren't logical as much as we're behavioral. And what this system tells us is to put profit last. And whenever we put something last, behaviorally, that's the same as saying ignore it. It's like if you came out of the hospital because you had a heart attack and the physician says, you're fine, we saved you, but you better start exercising. You're not going to come out of the hospital and say, now I'm putting my health last. No, you say, now I'm putting my health first. See, what comes first gets prioritized. So behaviorally in this formula, we're saying sales and expenses come first. So what we do is we sell. I bet you everyone watching sells as much as you can, and then we pay expenses. And it's human nature to say soft things around this. So we don't call it expenses as much as we're reinvesting or it's growth. So I need to sell and I need to spend money to grow, which facilitates more sales, which then I need more money to grow and support those sales. And we stay looping here. Year end comes, we're recording this on March 30th. And, April 15th is 16 days from now, and there'll be nothing here. So here's what I suggest the formula is. It is so simple, but this is what you do. You take your profit first. And what I'm saying is now change the formula to be sales minus profit equals expenses. And here's the simple, subtle, well, I shouldn't say subtle, the simple but highly impactful change. Every time you make a sale and a deposit comes in your business, you first immediately take your profit, and these other components we're talking about, owners paying stuff, you take your profit and you allocate it to profit first. You hide it away from yourself. Now, the leftover, what comes last, is expenses. You're prioritizing sales and profitability, and you're reverse engineering your way to cover this profit. Once you take your profit first, you must figure a way how to make that happen with the remaining money left for expenses. It's the pay yourself first principle applied to business, and the impact, I promise you, is radical.
It's huge. And this is my favorite quote. Now, everybody watching or listening, repeat after me. Your business is supposed to serve you. You are not in service to your business.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful quote from your book.
Oh, I didn't know I wrote that.
I have it highlighted along with every other word in profit first. And folks, literally, if you are not including your salary, if you're not taking out profit ahead of time, you are not accurately portraying your business. It is never about how much revenue you make, right, Mike?
Yeah. So I call revenue, actually, I call them stress points. Mm-hmm. So just to give you a sense from my perspective, I've had of two of my companies, one was, I sold it was $2.5 million. My second one was on a run for $7 million. My current one is just reaching $1 million. So I've had the range. And of course, all my businesses started as zero. So I've experienced the range. What I found is as the revenue grew, the stress on the business and subsequently myself increased. A $7 million business, there's a lot of moving pieces. I remember we had $250,000 a month of payroll I had to pay. And I remember saying to myself, oh my God, if we don't get a big project this month, I have to refinance my house, and I don't even have enough to cover the payroll. So it's very stressful. Profit is sustainability. It's confidence and strength. So ironically, as the revenue increases, the stress increases, but as the profitability increases, the stability and strength. So I want to have greater profits to a reduced revenue ratio, and I'll have the most confidence and stability in my company. I'm not saying revenue's bad. I'm saying a lot of companies focus just on that top line, sell, 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 and the stress is increasing and the profit isn't moving, and then it becomes overwhelming.
Right. And you talk about different percentages for profit, and it does depend on the business, right?
It depends on the business. In my book, I did an analysis of the fiscally elite. I analyzed about 1,000 companies of different sizes based on revenue and determined what the fiscally elite were posting in profitability, what they were paying the owners of the business, and so forth. And I call those settings, those percentages, and they're available for free download too on my website. You don't have to buy the book. I mean, you should.
Oh, go download it. Profit first, Amazon.com now.
Go there now. It's in the book, but you can get it for free. And those numbers, I call them TAPs, or target allocation percentages. Those are numbers I encourage you to move your business toward, but not necessarily start there. And this idea comes from this concept written by two fabulous authors, Dan Heath and Chip Heath. They're brothers. They wrote a book called Decisive, among other books. And in this book, they talk about lowering the bar. And it's to me, it's a profound concept. All our lives, Andy, I'm sure you've been told, I've been told, raise the bar, turn up the heat, big goals, be hags, huge, think big. In this book, they found that there's greater success when we lower the bar. And the analogy they use is people looking to lose weight. Most people who are looking to get physically fit and lose weight are told to exercise. Say run 5 miles every couple of days and you'll get physically fit. And it's true, but it's such a leap from where they are now that most people fail. It's too painful. So instead, they said in this study, if people that watch television and want to lose weight are simply willing to stand when they watch television instead of sit, that there'll be actually a bigger calorie burn. They'll start to lose weight. Then once they're standing, if they're willing to walk in place, they'll lose more weight. And then since they're walking in place already, a few weeks later, if they're willing to jog in place, then they can keep moving. And if they take these small incremental, lower the bar steps, they'll build to running 5 miles a day. And in this case study, I think they studied 100 people. After 6 months, 80% of the people that went through this program were running 5 miles, where the people who were told to run 5 miles from day one, it was like a 99% failure rate.
So you suggest doing it the same thing for the business?
It's a good way. Why did I tell that boring story?
Instead of putting 50% of everything you're earning into profit.
Yeah. So if you've never had a profit, starting today, put 1% toward profit. $1,000 comes in, I'm saying take $10 and put into an account for profit and never touch it. You can run your business off $990 if you can do it off $1,000. It's such a low bar that you can just step over it. Of course you can do that. You won't get rich this way, but overnight you will get confidence. you will start to realize that you can pre-allocate profit. Then next quarter, maybe 90 days later, increase it to 2 or 4, and over time increase it, and you'll start to adjust, and a new behavior will come about where you'll ensure profitability every time from the get-go.
And this is key. It really brings about what you talk about, which is real revenue. And talk a little bit about that as well, because I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, so this is a concept I wrote about when I was writing the book. I was interviewing people for it, and I met this one business owner who had a construction company. He was a guy. And I said, tell me about your business. And he's like, oh, I have a $50 million company. And I remember my first going, wow, that's a good sized company. It's a lot going on. And I said, tell me, how does the money flow? And he said, well, I sell $50 million worth of homes every year, but I spend about $25 million on materials. I have to get the lumber and the electrical stuff and all these materials. And I spend about another $20 million or so on subcontractors, the electrician, the contractor, and all these different people that get involved, the plumber. And I said, okay, so you actually don't have a $50 million company. You're taking $50 million from customers, but immediately you're giving $25 million to suppliers and another $20 million to subcontractors. You actually have a $5 million company. It's $50 million, and what you're doing is you're just moving the money, what I call above the line. Before you even touch it, really, it goes to other people. So you can't act like you have a $50 million business. You must act like a $5 million business. And there's a real kind of juxtaposition going on here. The perception that this guy had was, I have a $50 million company, and he was acting that way. His personal spend, his lifestyle, the way he ran his business and expenses were representative of a $50 million company, but he wasn't even close. He was 1/10 that size.
Right.
So for all of our businesses, everyone watching, your real revenue is not how much money you sell. It's how much you sell minus materials. Now, this is not cost of goods sold. It's actual materials to get your stuff done. Here's the thing. If you're a service-based business, law firm, accounting firm, I have a membership organization, all service-based, your real revenue is your top line. But if you have a business that sells inventory, maybe you have a retail store, maybe you sell on Amazon as an Amazon seller. In those cases, you need to subtract out that cost of those materials to get to really what your revenue is. Because everything else above that is just moving money from one vendor to another.
Absolutely right. And those are really important numbers. And again, Mike gives you the numbers that you need to best manage your business, whatever type of business it is, and including, that you need to put money away for operating and taxes. So every dollar that comes into your business, you're taking and training yourself to put some aside, right, Mike?
Yeah. You know what this is? This is my grandmother, my mother did this too. It's the envelope system. So just to bring absolute clarity to what we're doing here, my mom, she used to work at the supermarket. She would come home from work and say a week's pay was $100. She had like 6 envelopes. One was for rent for the apartment. Another one was for the food budget. Another one was to give back to the community, and then so forth. And what she do is when the $100 came in, she would allocate money to each one of these envelopes in predetermined percentages. Some of them were fixed. Rent was always had to be the right amount, but food was a percentage. And here's what was so interesting. When it came to shopping, she always had enough money in that food envelope. She'd only work with that envelope. But here's the thing. She always had enough money, but it always wasn't the same amount. When sometimes she would work overtime and there'd be more money to allocate toward food. Other times she was sick and couldn't work that week and there was less money. But when she went to the food store, she said, whatever's in here, I have to make it work for this week. And surprise, surprise, she did. And we all can do this. With your bank, set up these multiple bank accounts. We've been talking about what I call the core 4, an account for your profit, owner's pay, tax, operating expenses. But you can set up additional accounts, maybe for capital purchases if you have to buy materials, and set up these accounts. Then as money comes in, you allocate it out based upon different percentages to these different envelopes. Now this tool becomes your biggest ally. Right. When you log into your bank account next time, you can look and you can see in each envelope how much money has been allocated. And before you spend money, you know what its intended purpose is, and you'll make much clearer, much more profitable decisions.
Absolutely. And this is true, folks, for those of you who are raising angel capital, equity crowdfunding, VC money. The minute that check comes, trust me, if you don't do a quick, and dirty, what Mike just showed us how to do, that money is going to be gone like this. And you're going to be, whoa, I just gave up 30% of my company and that money's gone. How did that happen? If you don't take care of it. And also what happens is when you don't stay profitable and focused on profitability, you start taking bad money. You start bringing on bad customers, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like starving for oxygen. You know, if you're suffocating, you will fight like mad just to get a breath of air. You don't care if there is a bus driving by and it's horribly polluted air. You just need air. You just need some degree of oxygen. Businesses without profit are depleted of oxygen, and desperate businesses, desperate people do desperate things. And if we don't focus on profit, the day comes, and it comes often frequently, that there's not enough money to pay the bills. There's panic, and now there's going to be loss. I got to lose the space I'm working in. I'm going to have to lose an employee. So we're starved for oxygen. We start doing desperate things. And we do illogical things. We'll discount prices significantly just to make a sale to anybody. And while that may bring in cash in the short term, it may actually substantiate further losses in the long term. We're not profitable. So if you don't have profit, you become desperate. Trying to sell your way out to get profitable is the grandest mistake I see over and over again. I can go to any entrepreneur and they'll say, if I had that one more big customer, finally I'd make the turn. Well, guess what? Your last customer was the most recent new customer and you didn't make the turn then. You haven't made it yet. Why do you think one more customer, one more big deal will get you there? You have to have profit as a discipline. And as I like to say, never again look at profit as an event. One thing has to happen. Look at profit as a habit. It's a perpetual daily discipline.
Now, let's say your business is growing, 500K, 1 million, 5 million. You have a longevity rule of thumb that you talk about. Can you share that a little bit with everybody?
Can I give you a blank stare? Because I have no clue.
Okay. Well, what happens is, you're the money's coming in, and you talked about how we have the float of the money. And sometimes it's through investors. Sometimes it's through that one rich client that you have for maybe 6 months, and then they move on, and you get so into that money that you forget that, money, that level of money can mask problems.
Oh, yes. Okay. I know where
And then on the other side, if you don't have enough to grow your business, you're going to flatline as well. So it's finding that balance that we're trying to achieve as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So now I know what you're referring to. I believe that our income, I'll go back to my amazing flip chart here that I just brought to the show. But I think income is something like chart, and that this is your deposits. They come in, they deplete, a big amount comes in, it goes back to zero, a little deposit comes in, and it's not normal. But what happens is there is kind of this average that plays out in between it. And when we're above average, we think things are great. Wow, I got a huge amount of money came in, business is finally cooking, and our spend, if I have another color marker, let's see, I got blue. Our spend often climbs with our income, but doesn't decline nearly as fast. And so what happens, this is income coming in. The blue line is our spend. And this is a behavioral pattern of humanity. This is how it works. When I see more income coming into my business, I spend more because I feel that I have more available. But when I lose money or there's no money coming in, I cling to what I own. It's behaviorally, it's called loss aversion. Once I possess something, another employee, more space, more equipment, I don't want to unwind it. So I go into this panic mode. So what happens is if you get a lot of money into business, as you were alluding to, either an investor gives it to you or you have big sales, often our expenses climb at the exact same rate as the inbound money. But then when that money goes away, our expenses stay up here. So the discipline is this. As money comes in, go back to profit first. Pre-allocate that money to profit and other categories if it's sales-based, and reserve a smaller portion for your operating expenses. That will kind of normalize or push down these peaks and valleys. The second thing is if you get a large lump sum because maybe you have a seasonal business, maybe the holidays are a big time for you and the summer stinks, or maybe an investor put a lump sum of money. In that case, I encourage setting up another account with your bank. If you're with the right bank, by the way, you can have an infinite number of accounts. They don't charge you for it.
It's great.
And there's no fees. There's no $0 balance for the right bank. But now, say a large lump sum money comes in, I set up an account I call the drip account. Money goes there. Then on a monthly basis, I peel off a portion of it. If I did over a year, every month, 1/12 of it, I move over to my actual income, and I start using that money in these different accounts. In this way, it normalizes that money. So instead of experiencing one spike in 1 month, it now plays out over 12 months.
Right. And this is so key to managing your business, folks. It's putting in these habits $1 at a time, $10 at a time, starting to train yourself so that when you see the money coming in, you make better decisions to keep your business in a nice hum instead of losing or, having sleepless nights at the end of the day. You just don't want that. So I highly recommend everybody have your bookkeeper set up your 12-month cash flow statement for you so you always know what those expenses are. And as your possibilities come in that you were projecting and you actually reach what you intended, then you'll know better. Well, I've got this overhead here. Or right now we can't make that expenditure. We're going to have to wait. It just gives you so much more peace of mind. And it's real, what I call practical visionary habits for your business. But so get profit first, get yourself a cash flow statement. And then I want to talk about your new book that you've got coming out on May 30th, Mike, which is so exciting. Surge. And it's got this another great tagline: time the marketplace, ride the wave of consumer demand, and become your industry's big kahuna. Great photo that you have going with that too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the back of the book, I'm surfing on it.
Yeah, it's so cool. Tell us about that and what prompted you to write that one.
So every book I've written since my first book is I've reached out to my readership, the folks that are the most raving fans, if you will, and said, what do I need to write to serve you in the next stage of your business? And I also do it for myself too. I look at what do I need for the next stage of my business. And I kind of collate all this information, and that's the book I decide to write. So a lot of people had read The Pumpkin Plan. That's a book that has been very popular and has read Profit First. So then I have a business that's growing using The Pumpkin Plan. They have one that's very profitable, but now they want to anticipate where is demand moving. None of us wants to get caught where you're growing your business and one day it just dries up. We want to know what the big next need is. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. How do you time the marketplace is what it boiled down to. So I started studying it. And how I write all my books is the first guinea pig is myself. I do research. I interview lots of people. And I create the theory or the thesis of the book. But then we start testing it. I don't know if you hear people in the background here, but we have a small office. There's 6 people. Great. We start testing out these ideas. And so I formed a company because I wanted to form a company and needed to, but secondly, I employed the surge technique to it to see how it go. The company is called Profit First Professionals, by the way, but I formed this company with a business partner and we applied this process to it, and it's worked. The core essence of this: most businesses chase opportunities as opposed to anticipate opportunities. Most people say, oh, the iWatch is really hot now. What can I do to serve that market? That's when you're chasing it. Anticipating an opportunity is the next opportunity that is swelling in demand, meaning customers want to buy it, but there isn't much supply. There isn't much competition serving that yet. So that's what we would want to do. We want to anticipate it. The second part I figured out, though, is you can anticipate too far in advance. Like we could talk about self-driving cars. They're coming, maybe. We're not sure when. And so you can start trying to build a taxi business around self-autonomous cars, but you don't know if that's going to work because you don't know what's coming. But electric cars, just to stay in that analogy, electric cars are here. Hybrids are here. There is a great opportunity in the hybrid market because chances are you or I have a friend that has an electric car or a hybrid car. That is what I call an imminent surge. There is growing demand. It's proven out. It's happening now, but there isn't much supply out there. So what services can you provide to cater to that imminent demand, and you'll do very well. That's the thesis of this book.
Yeah, and what's so important about this book, Surge, Mike, in my opinion, is every company needs to constantly be focusing on innovation. And that's really what Surge is about, is it needs to be incorporated and built in to your business cycle so that every 4 to 7 weeks, you're talking about this. Okay, what's happening in the marketplace? And someone has to, or a group of you have to be reading, whether it's Crunchbase or CB Insights, something to find out who's doing what, who's getting money for what. Wow, how could we serve that market? You don't need to be a unicorn, right?
No, you don't need to. Here's what I found fascinating, Andy, is that innovation now is more important than marketing. And that's kind of what blew my mind as I was doing this research. Marketing is an after the event process. I have the thing, and now I need to tell people about it. But time is getting so compressed, things are moving so quickly that the marketing is coming out in some cases too late. 6 months or a year later, after you really have your product established, is almost too late. So the marketing now must be embedded into your service or offering. It must be anticipating demand. It must be so unique and so innovative, the exact word you used, that it distinguishes itself. You no longer have to market if your product is that remarkable. So that's the key.
And it's key when you go to hire people, folks. Make sure you've got someone who thinks like that on your team, who's going to be, it's really part of your HR strategy. And, for startups especially, you don't want to be behind the 8 ball. We have such a thriving startup community here in Boston, Mike. It's so much fun. And everybody out there anticipating the needs. And you can.
I was just up in Boston. Well, this is maybe a year ago, visiting Constant Contact's headquarters. They recently sold. Yeah, exactly. And they took me for a tour of their facility. Gail was president of the company before they sold. She took me for a tour. They walked me down to the bottom floor, the basement floor, and it's this beautiful space. And there was all these different small offices and sections and all these people hustling away. I said, "What's that?" They said, "That's our incubator." Right. I said, what do you mean? They said, those people all own their own businesses and we're supporting them. We're incubating them. Because she said, we know that even a company as successful as Constant Contact, with thousands of amazing employees, we don't necessarily know what the next thing is. So we need the greatest thinkers and innovators out there. And why not put them in our headquarters? That's why we started this. And they were supporting it. And that was, there you go, in Boston.
Exactly,
Yeah, it supports the fact you must get fresh thought into your business. It doesn't necessarily mean young minds.
No.
Get fresh thought, different perspectives, and people looking at the new problems in new ways.
It's tremendous. And I highly recommend anybody, wherever you are, if you have an incubator around or if you have a meetup that's having pitch contests, things like that, it is food for your brain, for your own inspiration. And you bring it back to your team, to your business. And most importantly, your customers start relying on you. It's a branding technique so that they go, I love her or him even more, this company even more, because they are always ahead of the game. And, Apple is used as an example all the time, but your company can be used as an example all the time. And Mike, what you're doing as well. Tell us about your podcast because it's so cool.
I'm beaming now. All of a sudden, I love doing it. It's a blast. And thank you for mentioning that. The podcast is exploding in growth, as you know. So I actually have 2 podcasts. One is the Profit First podcast, and the whole podcast is about exploring profitability from every perspective. And the other podcast I have is called Grow My Accounting Practice. As we started Profit First Professionals for accountants and bookkeepers, we started this podcast to teach accountants and bookkeepers how to become more consultative. So I would love for the folks listening, go to iTunes or whatever your favorite podcatcher is and type in Profit First Podcast. I promise you will love it. It's a little bit like the morning zoo radio.
You guys are very vibing off each other. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's just a fun vibe, but we're always exploring something unique around ways to improve your profitability.
Right. And the other thing that Mike has, folks, which is really handy, he has a list. You still have this, right? Your list of bookkeepers and accountants who use Profit First.
Yeah. So the methodology I just taught you, it is that simple. Anyone can get started in it. But the analogy we use here is a little bit like the stock market. Everyone knows buy low, sell high, and you'll get very rich. But there's a reason there's brokers and financial advisors out there because there's lots of nuances.
Right.
So that's why we started Profit First Professionals. If you want guidance in implementing Profit First in your business, if you need help with the nuances or accountability, we've set up a network of bookkeepers and accountants. You go to profitfirstprofessionals.com and you'll see a big button up the top that says Find Me a Profit First Professional. Click on that, fill out the quick form. We'll match you up with someone that specializes in your industry or is in your area, and they'll help you with Profit First.
Great. And Elaine was asking, can we get it on Android? Get what on Android, darling? in the comment section here. I'm so sorry. But if it's handy, we want to have
we'll get
the podcast. Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, yeah. If you go, here's another way to get there, and I'm not trying to overly promote stuff. If you go to MikeMichalowicz.com, I'll give you a shortcut to find that because I know that's the hardest, most Polish name you've ever heard. Type in Mike and then Mick, M-I-C. So Mike space Mick in Google. Then when you see the long Polish name, that's me. Click on Mike Michalowicz and go to the blog, and you'll see a link to all the podcasts and so forth. And when you go to the podcast, you'll see a link to the Android podcast, the iTunes. Yeah. I think there's like 3 other platforms.
And anybody who has a podcast and anybody who does blab, you need to have your audio as a podcast everywhere. Just saying, look how Mike has it set up, or whoever supports Mike. It is, I think, the best. It's what I refer people all the time. You want something to look like this in your website. This makes it very easy for everybody. So I love that.
Thank you.
What is it about your work that you love the most, Mike Michalowicz?
Well, very well pronounced.
Hey, I'm married to a Jersey boy who happens to be primarily Polish as well. So
go Jersey. I love Jersey. So the thing that gets me up in the morning, every morning, is my life's purpose. I exist to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. The clarity came, I was in my 30s when my daughter came to me and had that moment. The words didn't come to me then. It took years for it to form, but I realized I exist on this planet to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. Just to put some numbers around this, the SBA said that 83% of small business, and there's 28 million small businesses in the U.S. alone, 83% of small business is surviving check by check. Most of the people watching this show right now are barely getting by in their business, and that crushes me. I have lived that. It is devastating. So I exist to eradicate that. That's my life's purpose, and I hope through the show, through everything I do, that I'm having impact on that.
Thank you. I love that. And you're absolutely right. Those odds are horrible. I mean, I've even heard higher numbers. And I know because of what you're teaching entrepreneurs that you're increasing the chance and lowering that percentage exponentially. So thank you for your purpose. Thank you for your devotion to that. Folks, you can find Mike everywhere. As he said, type in Mike-Mick. It'll pop up. He really is everywhere. And he's so adorable, especially when on the landing page, there's a photo for everything he does. There's a photo for his blog. There's a photo for,
it'll kind of blow your mind.
I mean, he's so charming and delightful. Everything that he writes and talks about is so easily digestible. And that's what we need. We don't have time to sit around and figure out what somebody's saying or have a decoder ring. Mike makes it very, very easy. And he really clearly is about your business. Any last words for our viewers / listeners today?
Sure. It's real simple. Get started today, because if you don't, you won't. And it's real simple. We went over the whole system here. You don't have to do all that. Let's lower the bar. Call your bank today. I don't care what bank you have. You can do it with any. Call your bank today and just ask the manager or your teller or whoever to set up one new bank account for you. Nickname it Profit. And starting today, that'll take you 15 minutes. You have no excuse. Starting today, transfer 1% more than you have in the past. If you had no profit, it's 1%. If you had 5%, now it's 6%. But transfer that percentage of profit for every deposit going forward. The impact it'll have on you is radical. Plus, you'll be helping me serve my life's purpose. So we both win.
Yay! Thank you so much, Mike. That's beautiful. It's really, and everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for having the courage to be an entrepreneurial adventurer. We are cheering you on from here. Woo, 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 woo. And I'll see you the next time. Thank you so much for tuning in.